So I really liked this one today. This was done in Edina. Uh, I showed up. It was a 9:30 a.m. appointment, and what they originally had bought the house, and there was a mounting bracket already there, but obviously it was a normal tilt mounting bracket, and so when they originally reached out to me, she said, I would like the cord concealed. What would that cost? And I said, well, if you go through the fireplace, it would cost around 250 or $350, depending on the surface on the side of the fireplace. If it's drywall, it's less money. If it's wood, it's more money. It just depends on what the liability would be. Because if it's, your thought process is what's in the way. Is there wood where you can't dictate, you don't know where the studs are because your stud finder's reading all wood. And then so what I do in those cases is I drill a tiny hole in the fireplace where I'm going to use a snap toggle to hang the bracket, and that way I'm not adding an extra hole. And so I can go in with my boroscope and then check around and kind of map out where I can and can't go. So that way you'll know where you need to drill that hole, you know, down, down here on the side. It would be at the level of the outlets, and I don't have a photo that low. Maybe I do. Let's see if I do. There we go. So it would be, down here or down here, depending on which side. I'm assuming they would go on this side since they have a magazine rack, but they didn't want to do that. They said, we want this done right, and so we want you to take down the Samsung frame, take the tilt mounting bracket off, redo it everything perfectly, right? And I said, well, where are you going to house the One Connect box? Because I'm assuming if you're watching this, you already know what the One Connect box is. It's the device that comes along with the Samsung frame that's the brains of the TV, because the TV is so thin, meant to look like a piece of art, that all the internals that would be in a normal TV are housed in a separate box. And then there's a One Connect cord that feeds, the TV all the digital information that it needs. And so that cord is 5 meters long. And so you can go through the fireplace with it. The trajectory is, you put a hole, where a stud isn't, of course, and then down through here. Like all this part right here, that's all shielded. So everything up here is it doesn't get hot. And so it's all fine through there. And so the key is to know where you can and can't go. I mean, that's obviously the whole ball game with a fireplace. But they wanted a recess box installed. They wanted the One Connect box in that recess box and their cable box in that recess box. And so there's a specific cable box or a recess network box that I use for that. They already had an outlet there, so I was able to just take the outlet out, make a big cutout that you'll see here. And so you'll see where the outlet had been. It was right in that spot. And so you'll see what I did there is this is when I just test, you know, uh, I cut the whole cutout, I rewire everything, and then I turn the breaker back on and then see if everything's working correctly. And that's when I finish off the entire recessed box. And so obviously, this right here had been where a coax cable input was, and I just took that out, rerouted the coax cable so that it would be inside the recess box, and then capped this off with a blank plate. And that way, it wasn't just an open space there. But obviously, these precisely positioned to make the TV right at the top of that tape is where they wanted the bottom of the TV to be. To give a little white space, also a little room because they had a frame for the Samsung frame, and so you want that little bit of room. And it turned out beautiful. And so I absolutely love that. Um, I mean, those jobs take about 3 hours for me. Uh, sometimes, sometimes longer. If they're plaster fireplaces, porcelain tile fireplaces, uh, those can be a half day affair, but I charge accordingly, of course, because it takes up so many booking slots. My average booking slot is $440, 442 over the last year. And, the more booking slots something's going to take up, the more it costs, of course. But I'm really happy about this one. See ya.